A teacher who I practice with likes to call these M&Ms. He'll ask, "Did you have your M&Ms today?" And just to stop what you're doing and take 2 or 3 intentional breaths and kind of ground yourself where you are. So this course is focused on practice. Next week, we'll start our time by inquiring into how your meditation went over the previous week, answering any questions you have. Maybe you run into some problems or frustrations, which is normal. And I want to talk a little bit about um, what is mindfulness anyway. So this course is going to be, you might say, kind of like opening up a pocket watch. I don't know if you've ever seen all the gears and bearings and things that are inside there. And it looks like a lot of stuff is going on. And we're just going to focus on like 4 basic components of mindfulness meditation. These are sort of tend to happen in a certain series, but you do kind of do some jumping around back and forth between them. There's not going to be a test on any of this, and I won't be awarding any prizes for the best meditator. So you can just focus on yourself and your own practice without worrying and starting to think, oh, look at so-and-so, they're a way better meditator than I am, or whatever it is. One of my themes is perfectionism, so I can catch myself falling into that way of thinking. There's one teaching from Zen that suggests that maybe we're already enlightened and we just forgot that we're enlightened. So that's kind of a thing that you might kind of contemplate. In your beginning, it seems kind of hard to believe, to be honest. And the word mindfulness, the word that it's translated from, is also a word that's used to mean to remember the present moment, to remember the sensations in the body. But even so, don't worry about remembering everything. Try to focus on things that I've taught that are new, that kind of open something up for you, to give you a new way of seeing. I'm hoping that there will be at least a couple things like that throughout the course. And then to focus on those things and work on kind of integrating that experience into your daily life. And as I think I said earlier, my goal is not to teach you a certain system of beliefs. I'm going to try to focus on process and to teach that in a way that you can integrate that into however your life is. Otherwise, honestly, you're not going to stick with mindfulness if you're not able to do that. And you won't be doing it long enough to start to see real benefits. So one definition of mindfulness, to try to make it a little more concrete, is that it's careful attention to whatever is arising in the present moment. Now, this could be sight, sound, taste, smell, touch, sensations within the body, emotions, thoughts. We hope that by the end of this course, you'll have a sense that there's a lot more to mindfulness than just that. One of the books that I'm going to suggest that you check out is, which is going to be on one of the handouts, is called Being You, which is sort of looking at mindfulness and consciousness from the perspective of neurology and brain science. It was written by Anil Seth is his name. And he has a very interesting hypothesis that in some ways, consciousness is a controlled hallucination, which is a pretty bold claim. And it's not saying that we're delusional or anything like that. He has a great TED talk about it that you might check out. But in the same way that like some of the experiments that we do at work, things that I see people processing on our batch cluster, you're taking images that to our naked eye just looks like noise, and then using these machine learning algorithms and neural networks to, out of that noise, to be able to find sensible patterns in the noise. And in some ways, the mind kind of works the same way. Like one thing that I have something called tinnitus, I have like a persistent ringing in my ears. And one theory about that is that the brain is noticing that a signal at a particular frequency is weaker than it ought to be. So the brain says, maybe we should boost the signal a little bit because it's not coming through. So in some sense, I'm not like a solipsist or nihilist. I do think there is a reality that is out there, but everything is filtered through the neural network of our brain trying to make sense of noisy data. So in a sense, what we're practicing in mindfulness is kind of like we're trying to catch a glimpse of how the mind assembles all of this data to make sense of it. And to recognize perhaps places where that process might be going a little bit wrong and causing us to suffer. And there's a type of meditation where you practice open awareness, just taking in whatever you take in and just trying to notice everything that's kind of like blipping on the radar screen. But in this particular practice of mindfulness that we're working on, there's an element of discernment that you're trying to be aware of. What things do you notice that are alleviating your suffering, and what things you notice. And the first foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness in the body. Second foundation of mindfulness is mindfulness of feelings, but that's more of a technical term. In mindfulness, it's not like just emotions. It's more about that you have a perception and there's kind of a feeling tone to that perception, like this initial impulse of like, I want that, or I don't want that, or I don't really care, I could take it or leave it. The third foundation is mindfulness of thoughts. And I'm actually going to be combining mindfulness of feelings and mindfulness of thoughts, so that we can also spend some time talking about emotions, which actually have a feeling component that's more basic, and then there's a sort of mental component where we're like trying to figure out what is this emotion or labeling it. And for the third week, we're going to talk about something a little bit different that's not one of the foundations of mindfulness, which is the 4 sublime attitudes of loving kindness, compassion, sympathetic joy, and equanimity. And reason that I want to bring that up is because when we get stuck in meditation, that is a useful thing to turn to contemplate, to kind of get yourself unstuck. And even sometimes as your mind really starts to get settled down, those attributes will just spontaneously begin to arise. And the fourth foundation of mindfulness is a little more abstract. It's called mindfulness of dharmas, which could be reflecting on teachings or investigating the nature of mindfulness itself. That the one question that you want to ask, for example, might be something that you could contemplate as contemplating dharmas. Or if there's a particular religious tradition that you follow, you might contemplate questions from the other teachings that you follow. Tonight, I'm going to focus a little more on mindfulness in the body. And I don't know if anybody else here lives with chronic pain, if anybody is in pain right now. One of the things that I discovered when I started practicing mindfulness more consistently is that just to function in day-to-day life, I had learned to sort of tune out a lot of physical pain. And I remember the first meditation retreat that I went on was a 3-day meditation retreat. And on the third day, we had breakfast and I took my medication the way that I always took my medication, with, just a couple sips of water. And then as I was sitting meditating, I was noticing like how much pain that was causing in my stomach. And it was like, oh, well, this sucks. And that was just one of the many things that really made me aware of how unconscious I had become of things that were going on in the body. And I also want to stress the importance of self-care, including hopefully some exercise, which is something I've just been working on doing myself more consistently. I'm walking about 5,000 steps a day, which, for some people is probably nothing. But one of the things that you may notice as you practice mindfulness is noticing things that you're doing that are increasing your suffering that you hadn't necessarily been aware of. Or, as I mentioned, painful sensations that you may have been tuning out. Also, if you've never sat meditating before, you may be surprised how difficult it can be to sit still, even for 10 minutes. And to set aside planning, remembering, doing, and just being in the present moment. But one thing that I do want to say is that if anything that I'm asking you to do if it feels unsafe, please trust your instincts about that and stop doing that and let me know, and we'll find something different for you to do that will work for you, so that you can practice in a way that feels safe. And that's not something to feel ashamed about, uh, nor is it a failure. It is very brave and responsible to come forward about something like that. And some discomfort, uh, for better or worse, is to be expected, especially if you don't have a good sitting posture. Um, and there are 4 basic meditation postures you can use. There's sitting. It's fine to sit in a chair. Um, one of the handouts that I'm going to be sharing shows some different traditional styles of sitting that you can also use, and some suggestions if you're sitting in a chair, how you can sit better. I do recommend, if you can, putting your feet flat on the floor if you're sitting in a chair. That may help out your little back, your middle and lower back a little bit. Second meditation posture, standing meditation. A third meditation posture is walking meditation. And there was a great site that I really love that had a great tutorial on a bunch of different styles of walking meditation, but I went to make a PDF of it and discovered that the website is gone. So I made a little write-up of modified walking meditation that I like to do. And it's important to try to not have like a definite goal or objective when you're doing walking meditation, but it is possible to walk like a normal person. You may find some tutorials for slow walking meditation, which is also great. And particularly if it's a rainy day, you can find a spot inside the house and just pace back and forth. And the final posture, which I urge caution for when you're starting out, is that you can also meditate lying down. And that's mostly in case you run into some drowsiness. But if you are dealing with physical pain, um, sometimes that could be easier to do and might be better fit. One thing that you can do is to like put your arm up in the air so that maybe you'll smack yourself if you start to fall asleep. Probably not really smack yourself, but it just gives you like an effort of something that you're trying to maintain that is kind of opposed to falling asleep. So I think I got through all of the basic stuff that I wanted to teach